Good morning, metalheads of the internet, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Metal Meltdown. Today we are talking about Morgöth Tales, a brand new album from French-Canadian, Juno Award-winning, sci-fi, progressive thrash metal innovators and icons, Voivod. This band, in theory, should not require much introduction. I've gushed about Voivod many a time here on the Metal Meltdown. They're one of my all-time favorite bands. I own a bunch of their stuff on vinyl, a lot of it autographed, might I add. We've interviewed their lead singer, Snake. We are currently preparing a Reviewing Every Voivod album video by popular demand. Records like Killing Technology, Dimension Hatros, Nothing Face, some of the best progressive sci-fi thrash metal out there. Early records like War and Pain and Roar, very primitive, very raw, very visceral, very exciting. I'm even a fan of some of the stuff they did in the 90s, like Angel Rat and The Outer Limits and Negatron. Their modern output has been pretty spectacular as well. I would dare argue, of all the old 80s thrash metal bands still kicking, Voivod have been one of the best when it comes to new music. For all of these reasons, I was obviously fucking elated for Morgöth Tales, a compilation album of sorts, which brings together re-recorded material from across the band's discography to commemorate. For all of these reasons, I was very obviously very fucking elated for all for Morgöth Tales, even despite the fact that it's not technically a brand new album, but actually a compilation of re-recorded material. What Voivod have done is they've picked basically one song from almost every album they've done up until about the early 2000s. They've re-recorded it with the current lineup, but also some special guests, namely former members Eric Forrest and Jason Newsted. And they've also added one original song, the title track Morgöth Tales, and this is all being put out to commemorate the band's 40th anniversary. Not exactly a brand new or totally unique concept/idea. Sodom released an album just last year with this exact premise entitled 40 Years at War, which also, interestingly, was commemorating a 40th anniversary. Plus, it's worth noting metal musicians and bands are weirdly infatuated with re-recording older material, updating it for the modern era. But even so, a cool one. I think a solid way to celebrate Voivod, their legacy, their impact, their music. Also, most importantly, Morgöth Tales, a good album. The fact is that Voivod's current lineup is tight as hell and super confident, and that shows consistently across the album as they consistently nail and update a lot of these tracks. Updated renditions of the band's earliest material like Condemned to the Gallows and Thrashing Rage and Killing Technology, I think stands out as some of my favorite stuff from here. Love hearing that scrappy, punky underbelly in Condemned to the Gallows again. With that more modern production and mixing and mastering, it's able to display maturity and wisdom while also still projecting that kind of pissy, youthful vigor. The more unorthodox, jagged progressions and riffs of Thrashing Rage and Killing Technology, I would say, pop and sizzle and soar even better with this more modern production and with this new lineup. I think the record really shines, though, when we get to like that late 80s Voivod period, records like Dimension Hatros and Nothing Face, because, I mean, these songs have been updated in such a way that they wouldn't be out of place on a more recent Voivod record, like last year's Synchro Anarchy. Crisp, clear, stimulating, exciting, filled with twists and turns, these songs feel weirdly quite fresh despite being like 35 years old. While I'm not as big of a fan of the kind of like 90s to early 2000s era of Voivod, it is nice to see all of this being represented on the album, and I do think that all of the updates made here are for the best. Nuage Fractal, for instance, has aged pretty well. I like the shimmering guitar passages. I like the moodier, kind of like alt-metal slow burn that the track has. Fix My Heart is cool too, throwing in some groovy classic rock and roll flavor into some 90s alt-metal. Rise and Rebel Robot, featuring Eric Forrest and Jason Newsted, respectively, I think also are really strong. Snake and Eric actually have some pretty good vocal chemistry here. They play off of each other quite nicely. Eric brings like a more abrasive kind of edge to this. And Rebel Robot, though probably my least favorite cut on this record, all things considered, is still filled with some pretty satisfying licks and grooves, plus it's also nice to just see Jason Newsted back in the fold. The album's lone original number and title track, Morgöth Tales, too, is fantastic. It's filled with literal whirlwinds of chaotic, hyper-technical riffage and some really eerie and unsettling kind of like spacey vocal work. Like, listening to this song feels like being jumped by, like, a group of random cybernetic alien assholes, and, I kind of love it. Everyone sounds fantastic. I love how the album has been produced and presented. It has a very similar feel and flow to Synchro Anarchy. It is a very natural and organic sounding record. It almost has the feel of, like, a really good live album. Snake struggles a little bit with some of the more high-pitched vocals, but I think for the most part, he's doing a really great job here as well. So is everyone else. Daniel Mongrain, who we've talked about before, the best possible replacement for Piggy, and he proves that again as he gets to update all of these classic riffs and songs and progressions, all of these classic songs that Piggy was a part of. Easy 4 out of 5 for me here, folks. I think Voivod did a great job updating a lot of these songs. It was great to hear some of their most iconic material and also a lot of their most underrated material updated and brought together in a collection that really does feel like it's celebrating everything about Voivod. Die-hard fans like myself, I think, are going to really enjoy and appreciate this record. I think this would actually make a great introduction to Voivod for people who don't know a lot about them and don't really know what album to really start with either, because it does show that musical progression and it does highlight a lot of really cool stuff from across their discography, because it really does show exactly how they've evolved. It really does display what makes them so important, and it does so while introducing them to some of their most iconic and also some of their most underrated material. Is it fair to say that I am biased? Yes, absolutely, but I'm biased for a fucking reason. Voivod are a fantastic band, and this is a great record and a great way to commemorate their 40th birthday, their 40th anniversary. So yeah, Morgöth Tales, 4 out of 5. Happy birthday, Voivod! I would celebrate in person with you and pour you a drink if that were possible, but it currently isn't, and even if it were, I've got to go to work later, so I really shouldn't show up to work with alcohol in my system. That's just really unprofessional, you know? I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Gotta be responsible. And that is it for the Metal Meltdown. I'm not an expert, nor do I claim to be. So what do you think? Do you like this record? Do you not like this record? And what do you want to hear from me next? And thank you for watching. Make sure you press subscribe right here so you can get updates on the Metal Meltdown immediately. Go here for more Voivod content, because why the fuck not? Stay tuned for reviewing every Voivod album sometime within the next 2 weeks or so-ish. That's what I'm aiming for. And as always, you have yourself a fantastic fucking day.